Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. We're super excited that you joined us for another week, another episode. We're super excited to be here, and we're very excited about the interview that we have this week. This week, we have legendary fly angler Matt Heron on the horn with us. It's a great interview. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Well, today on the Remote No Pressure Podcast, we have Matt Heron. Thank you very much for joining us, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, one of the main reasons I reached out to you was because of your involvement with Cast Hope. Can you just tell us a little bit about that program and how you're involved with Cast Hope?
Absolutely. So, long story short, Cast Hope came about 9 years ago by our founder and director, Ryan Johnson, who's from Chico, California, which is up near Redding. And long story short, he just kind of had this idea to round up some of the local kids and take them fishing. That's how it started. And then since then it's turned into a Northern California nonprofit with, he basically manages regions in Chico, Sacramento, and Redding. And then it was probably about 7.5 years, did really well. It got to the point where fundraising was really taken off through donors and, different fundraisers at fly fishing events. And they got together a board of directors, and about year 7.5, give or take, year 7, they decided they wanted to expand to Truckee, Tahoe, my area, as well as Northern Nevada, the Reno, Sparks area. So they kind of came at me with the idea and the opportunity to, start this region. And having had helped Cast Hope a few times over the years with some local stuff they did here for field trips, for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. And it's a great opportunity to give back to kids that may never have the opportunity to pick up a fly rod.
How do you guys select which kids go fishing with you?
Great question. So there's a few different ways we go about it. One, where most of our volume comes from, is pairing up with outside organizations such as Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Clubs. Those are kind of the national famous ones. Obviously every town has those. Every big town has those, but then, also stuff on a little bit smaller scale. Like some of the ones we're working with are local churches, local secondary schools, that kind of stuff where, we might get 3 to 15 kids at a time. And then the other side of it where the volume doesn't really come into play is, just families that we meet, in our area, Reno, Tahoe, where, it might not be a kid that's in Big Brothers Big Sisters, but the parent, through the grapevine finds out about us, reaches out and says, hey, I heard about your program. My kid has always wanted to learn how to fly fish, but, us as the parents, we don't have the gear. We may not have the funds, but the biggie is we don't even know where to start. And, would he or she be a great fit for the program? And, usually our answer is yes. It would be hard for us to kind of turn down somebody,
Right.
But the general background is kids that are at risk or underprivileged. We do have a few exceptions to that, but that's kind of the overwhelming, goal and mission for sure for Cast Hope.
Can you tell us a little bit about, do you know any stories firsthand of some kids who were positively affected? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stories, but can you share with us a story, Matt, about how a kid who went to Cast Hope really took on to the fly fishing thing?
Yeah, I would say one of the success stories of the program would be a kid named Dakota from the Chico area, which was where it was founded. His mentor, we work with a ton of guides, but his mentor happened to be Ryan, who again is the director. And long story short, the ultimate goal is not to turn these kids into fishing guides by any means.
Right.
It's to give them an appreciation for the outdoors and get their feet wet in a new sport. No pun intended, but there was a young kid, Dakota, and his story was great. He really fell in love with fly fishing over the years. I want to say he started when he was 14 or 15. Our age range is 10 to 18, so kind of middle school, high school, give or take. And this past summer was given an amazing opportunity after being with the program for a long time to do a shadowing program up in Alaska. And he has a number of brothers and sisters, stepbrothers and sisters from a number of different dads with his mom, comes from kind of a broken home, drugs in the family, that kind of thing. And we were really fortunate to, have him be one of the kids that decided to not just do one or two trips, but over the years kind of turn into a true fly fisherman. And, that's just one of, like you said, many stories, but, kind of the being able to go to a lodge in Alaska and shadow, one of the other Cast Hope guides who works up there in the summer was truly just something special. And, when Ryan started it, that wasn't the goal, but it was just kind of a cool thing to see it morph into that.
What do you think it is, Matt? What is it about fly fishing that um, is so effective in helping people? Like you said, not necessarily making them fishing guides or even going into the industry, but exposing them to the outdoors. Why do you think fly fishing is such a powerful tool to introduce kids to the outdoors?
Yeah, I would say the answer for the Cast Hope kids is probably a similar answer to me. For me, I had a little different background learning how to fish with my dad growing up, and that transformed into fly fishing. But the overwhelming thing is it's just as fly fishers, we have such an appreciation for ecosystems and how they work, and appreciation for the outdoors, and all these things kind of snowball into eventually becoming environmentalists, whether it's small or large scale, and wanting to protect our resources, whether it's a trash cleanup in your backyard or something as big as Pebble Mine. There aren't a lot of kids out there that aren't in the fishing outdoor world
Hmm.
that put more than one thought into that. So we're just kind of, not we, but the sport as a whole is just kind of breeding this next generation of anglers and humans that, are going to have a great appreciation for protecting everything around us for generations to come.
Yeah, awareness, just making them aware of what's there.
Exactly.
Some people don't even know,
Exactly. So,
Um,
so the kid I was talking about, he basically grew up in Redding and Chico and had
wow.
never left that area his entire life. And the next thing you know, he's in remote Alaska, with bears and salmon all around him. It's quite the eye opener for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I really can't. Let's,
Yeah.
let's talk about you, Matt. You grew up and you started fishing in the Adirondacks. Is that correct? And did I say that as Adirondacks?
Yeah,
Adirondacks?
Adirondacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So, long story short, I grew up in upstate New York, just south of Saratoga, and the Mohawk River was my backyard. Literally, I could walk there in 2 minutes, and grew up catching smallmouth and rock bass, some pike, some largemouth. But excuse me. But our second home growing up, we were only 45 minutes south of the Adirondack Park, which is 6 million acres, 6+ million acres. It's the largest state park in the country. And that was where, not only did we catch all the bass and pike I just mentioned, stuff like that, but that's where the trout fishing thing really, really took off as a kid. I mean, my dad had me fishing as soon as I was old enough to walk and coordinated enough to cast a rod, throwing rooster tails and panther martins and stuff to trout as a kid.
And what made you decide to do this like full time? Or how did you get to where you are now, Matt? From being that kid in the Adirondacks to to your career now. How did you get from point A to point B?
Yeah, so I'll try to make the short story as short as possible. So I always knew I wanted to do outdoor fish something for college, right? So I ended up double majoring at two SUNY schools in New York, SUNY Morrisville and SUNY Cortland. I received degrees in aquaculture, aquatic science, which is basically like fish hatchery management and recreation. That was my BS and my AAS, and my minors and concentrations were outdoor recreation management and environmental education. So, very outdoorsy oriented degrees. And long story short, to finish my bachelor's, I had to do a 3-month internship somewhere. It had to be approved by the school. And I knew this years in advance. And I knew when that time came, I wanted to go out west. So I started looking for internships, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, somewhere in that hub of fly fishing, just because for the trout thing, I had never traveled. I'd never been, to the west, at least kind of the famous west, for trout.
Hmm.
And long story short, it wasn't my plan at the time, but I ended up getting an internship in the fly fishing industry in Livingston, Montana, which is like the hub, or at least one of the hubs in most people's eyes. And the plan was to only go there for a couple months or 3 months. And then I was going to Syracuse to do my master's in fisheries biology at ESF, their environmental school. And as the story goes, a 3-month internship turned into me never moving or never leaving to go back home, and got my foot in the door in the fly fishing industry, which I had always fly fished, since I was a kid, but had never really worked in the industry, and worked for the FFF at the time. That was their name, Federation of Fly Fishers. They've since changed it, but they were a nonprofit. And to even make the next jump, a year or so in, one of my buddies got hired out here at Resort at Squaw Creek as the assistant rec manager at Resort at Squaw Creek. And basically I said to him, kind of half-assed, like, hey man, if you want somebody to start a fly fishing school at that resort, let me know. I'll come do what I've been doing my whole life, but do it as a business. And it was literally kind of throwing paint at the wall, and some of it stuck, and the resort was all about it. And that was 12 years ago at this point, and it's turned into something bigger and better than, I ever could have imagined.
Well, let's talk about the school, because if you go to matt heronflyfishing.com, and we'll put the links up on our blog. Can you tell us a little bit about the school and kind of your mission statement and what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, so the school since day one has kind of been our bread and butter. And don't get me wrong, we run a ton of guide trips, but the school is kind of our little claim to fame. We have 2 private ponds that we lease from Resort at Squaw Creek, and we stock them every spring, usually May, and we kind of open up for the season once the fish go in. And long story short, my passion has always been teaching, even more so than guiding, which with guiding, most of the times it even goes hand in hand. But we run a number of different classes from an hour and a half to full day. If by special request, we'll offer, multi-day schools, at least once a month, sometimes more than that, we'll run multi-day stuff. But we're in kind of a unique demographic here in that we're such, Lake Tahoe is such this giant tourism driven machine that it's not like Bozeman or, Missoula or, Salt Lake, where people are going there to fish.
Mm-hmm.
Here, people are coming to vacation, and then fishing's kind of a side thought. They want to fish in the morning and golf in the afternoon,
Right.
Which is why we keep our classes kind of short and sweet, depending on what they want to do. And our most popular option is our 3-hour class in the morning, followed by a half or a full day guide trip in the afternoon on the river, which is our pond and river package. And it's just a perfect combination. And we just love to teach a lot of casting, a lot of fishing, a little bit of fly tying, maybe not too much, but kind of everything in, the beginner's world,
So do you guide? Do you personally still guide, Matt, or do you have guides that work for you guys?
Yeah. So no, I definitely still guide. Literally just got off the water a few hours ago today. The guiding is year round, and the school runs spring through fall. But when we're cranking in the summer, I'm getting ready to do my taxes here for last year. We'll have anywhere from 12 to 15 guides in the summer. That they're all independent contractors. They all run their own business, but we are constantly funneling our trips through those guys, all of our overflow. And in the summer we're just cranking. It's a good program for sure.
Let's talk about guiding. So the bow of the boat, okay? You use a drift boat, or what do you normally use?
I hate to kind of screw up your plan here. It's actually all walk and wade.
Okay. So it's
yeah, great question. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say you've been guiding for a lot of years. What's your most memorable trip?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. There's been a lot of good ones over the years. I would have to say the most memorable would be with 2 of my really good repeat clients. It's a husband and wife that have been fishing with me for years. I would say one of the coolest things about the business and what we do is you develop relationships with people that you never expected, to where it's not just a repeat client, but these people become friends and family. Literally, presents for my kid's birthday, Christmas cards, that whole thing. And, this one couple has become that or turned into that over the years. And one year we went out, and the wife just caught the biggest rainbow she's ever caught. To this day, it's one of the biggest rainbows we've caught on the Truckee. It was a big cut bow, probably 24 and a half, pushing 25 inches. And she was so ecstatic. We get done, and she's like, "We're taking you and your wife out to dinner tonight and teaching you how to drink whiskey the proper way," So I literally called my wife. I'm like, "Hey, so-and-so," who she knows, I'm like, "They're going to take us out to dinner tonight." And don't get me wrong, I love my whiskey, but I certainly wouldn't say I know the proper way to drink high-end whiskey. And, from catching this awesome fish and just having her like face light up like you couldn't believe, it's actually the cover on our brochures, her holding this fish, and going out with them after. It's just, something I'll never forget, just the whole experience, so.
Yeah, what are some of the things you've learned from some of your clients over the years?
Learn patience would be near the top of the list. It's you definitely have to be a people person, and you have to be ready to deal with absolutely every skill level. People call us and say, hey, I fish all over the world once a month and travel and this and that. And, you just take it with a grain of salt and be ready to, have the guy, be setting the wrong way on the river.
Right.
Or, I mean, the list just goes on and on, but definitely, you just got to have that right personality and, roll with the punches if somebody's, not up to par, which is fine. Because again, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, I love to teach and, being able to turn anglers into more efficient anglers is just the icing on the cake, showing them one little thing that just changes their whole mindset on how to do something. And they're like, damn, I wish somebody told me that 20 years ago. And, it's just one of those things. So,
Yeah, I think the love of teaching is a common thread in all the successful guides that we've talked to. They all enjoy teaching, not just catching fish, but actually teaching. We
yeah.
had we had a guide here from northern Michigan. I'm in Michigan, so we had a teacher. We had a teacher on. He teaches during the year, but he also guides. But he just
hmm
loves teaching. So
Yeah.
that's seems to be a common trait.
Yeah. No, the teaching thing has been my passion since day one. I've been teaching forever, but my internship, which turned into a full-time job again with the Federation of Fly Fishers, my boss there and a bunch of his associates, I was just like a sponge to them. I mean, these guys and women were some of the best casting instructors, fishing teachers in the country. And, my internship was, we did a lot of stuff, but whenever we did classes, I was just a sponge, and I was like, oh my gosh, you said that in such a different way, and all that stuff just sticks with me forever. Just the easiest way to explain something, not going on and on. It's just a few little teaching cues here and there. And, yeah, I don't know. I could talk about the teaching thing all night for sure.
Well, it's your passion, so that's cool to hear you so passionate about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's talk about the fly fishing film tour. How long did you work with the fly fishing film tour?
Yeah. So man, I was full time, I believe, in what was their second year. Thad Robinson, who's one of my best friends, he started it years ago. He did one showing in Salt Lake the first year and it sold out. And that was like the light bulb moment. Like, wow,
Wow.
this is cool. Maybe we should make this something different, a little bigger. So the next year they went on the road and I think they did 13 cities. It did really well. And then the third year, the second year of really having going on the road, which was my first year, I think we did like 40 shows.
Holy
So that was,
cow.
I believe, excuse me, I believe 2008. And I did that every winter for anywhere from 2 to 3 months from 2008 to maybe, man, I don't know, 2013 would be a guess.
Hmm.
And then a couple of years I was kind of part-time filling in, you and I talked about this the other day, getting married, having kids, adds makes it a little harder to just bounce for 2 or 3 months and go fish all over the country. But, yeah, I was cranking from those early years and man, it was the best job I've ever had. It was just too cool to travel.
What do you
So
think makes the fly fishing film tour? What do you think made it so successful?
I think it brought the big hype that was surrounding online videos to the big screen.
Hmm.
So if that was 2008, I would say fly fishing videos really started to take off with the whole YouTube generation. I mean, I'm just going to throw some dates out there, from probably 2003 to 2007, 8. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, this is cool to watch it on our, laptops. I don't even know if it was cell phones back then or computers. And it was to put it on the big screen. And, it was, especially with the current owners of the film tour, it's just such an easy transition to go from like a Warren Miller ski film, which worked forever, to say, hey, well, if somebody wants to watch cool skiing movies on the big screen, there's no reason they wouldn't want to watch fly fishing movies.
Right.
And the other thing was, of course, the timing of the tour was from kind of midwinter to early spring, mid spring, when
Mhm.
most people are freezing their butts off, not fishing at all, and looking for something to do to kind of cure that
Right.
cabin fever.
Yeah, I'm heading out in a
So
couple of weeks to see it here in town, and I'm really
yeah,
excited
awesome.
because we're frozen. We're frozen in. I mean, there's a little bit of ice fishing
Right.
going on, and there'll be steelhead
Yeah.
fishing coming up in March. But as of
Hmm.
right now, most people are hunkered down, and you're exactly right. It's like you got a bunch of knuckleheads just looking for something to do, and get us through spring. And
Exactly.
yeah, well, that's great.
So
Where do you see the future of this industry going? I mean, the Fly Fishing Film Tour had an unbelievable amount of locations this year.
yeah,
Where do you see the industry going? I mean, what do you see as trend wise?
I would say trend wise, all things are pointing in the right direction. I may misquote this, but a few things that we're seeing, I believe it was the New York Times, a month ago wrote this big article on, women participation numbers going up, which I absolutely agree with because I keep track of all of our demographics.
Hmm.
The biggie with us is women go up a little bit every year, and also kids demographics. And the cool thing with kids is, for me, I literally feel like half of the kids that do our kids' schools and classes, the parents are always like, "Oh yeah, he watches that show River Monsters with Jeremy Wade, and all he wants to do is catch a fish and be outside and go fishing and this and that." So it's cool to see, this famous gear guy on TV transition into kids just wanting to go fishing.
Wow.
So that's kind of this cool transition from, kids don't care if it's on gear or on a fly. They just want to catch a fish. And, the other side of that, I've been involved with the fly fishing show for years, having a booth on the West Coast at the local Pleasanton show, which is in the Bay Area south of us. And, Ben Fermisky, who's the director, his press releases are all for all the shows. I believe there's 6 of them around the country. They sold out more than they ever have, and in the venues where they could grow, they added booth space, and those all sold out.
Yeah.
So there's no question that things are trending in the right direction. Our annual fly tackle dealer show has been well received more in the last couple of years than years before that. So much so that it's moving back to Denver in the fall. I want to say fall of 19.
Hmm.
So that's a huge deal. That's going to be, I mean, everyone as far as that's involved with that show was just, what's the word I'm looking for? Was just really pushing to get that show moved back to Denver where it should be in the fall. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I could, again, talk about this for a while, but all things are looking up to keep it short.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of momentum. It seems like a lot of excitement around fly fishing, and it's really, really good to see that. Now, there may be a lot of people out there right now, Matt. I mean, there's people who listen to this podcast that don't necessarily fly fish, because
Yeah.
I get emails sometimes from people that are like, I just enjoy hearing the stories, and I enjoy hearing, people who have coped with life through fly fishing. If someone that is listening that doesn't fly fish, that may be thinking about doing it, how would you suggest that they go about getting involved in fly fishing?
I would say there's 2 answers to that. One is free, and one involves spending a little bit of money. The first one would be do a Google search for your local fly fishing club.
Mm.
There are fly clubs, whether it's Trout Unlimited affiliated. Well, now I almost said Federation of Fly Fishers. They changed their name. Now it's Fly Fishers International.
Hmm.
Those are 2 huge international nonprofits. Well, FFF is to use US, but that always have things going on to get your foot in the door with local fly fishing people. Usually, the people involved in those clubs are more than willing to teach you how to tie flies, to teach you how to cast. Many of the clubs will do fish outs, which is where once a month, once every 2 months, maybe once a quarter, they say, "Hey, sign up and come to this destination. It'll cost you $50, and we'll teach you how to fish this specific body of water." Sometimes they'll do rivers, lakes, streams, whatever. So that's a really easy way. Usually the dues for those are very cheap to be a member, maybe $35, 50 at the most, if that. But it's a great way to meet a bunch of like-minded people quickly, many of which might be beginners as well, And then the other side of the coin would be, it's hard to not recommend flagging down a local guide or instructor. Whether you want to do a full day guide trip and learn everything, or just go down to your local park and do an hour casting lesson with somebody. For whatever reason, with other sports, say skiing, golf, whatever, it's a normal mindset for people to say, hey, I need to take a lesson. And for whatever reason, with fly fishing, it's not at the top of people's list to take a lesson. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of schools that are busy out there, but everyone, when they finally do, they're like, man, I should have done this so long ago. They're trying to learn a lifetime sport on their own.
Right.
And if you have a few bucks to spend, it will destroy the learning curve if you spend 4 to 8 hours with a guide or instructor on the water.
Right.
So.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Matt, for spending some time with us. If someone wanted to get a hold of you or go out to your school, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So the best way is our website, which is mattheronflyfishing.com. The easiest way to remember it is Heron, just like the bird, no strings attached, mattheronflyfishing.com. And then we're really good about social media and Instagram. Everything we post on Instagram, we link to our Facebook page, which again is Matt Heron Fly Fishing. And this time of year, we're posting a few times a week maybe, but spring through fall, we're just cranking out pictures, and it's a great way to keep tabs on what we got going on.
Well, that's great, Matt. We'll put all those links on our website, and thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Remote No Pressure Podcast. Be sure to go to our website at remotenopressure.com, sign up for our mailing list, follow us on Facebook, Instagram if you haven't already. And until next time, go fishing.